right, happy Tuesday. This is Tyrone Gathers Jr., your host of the Source of the Inkwell, live on KUAW. I sound for you. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. You can check out this broadcast in a number of ways. Excuse me. Sorry, the chair was higher for the microphone. You can check out this broadcast a number of ways. You can hit us up on Facebook at KUAW. You hear me now? KUAW on our Facebook live stream. You'll be able to see us. You can also call us at 165996893. You can also comment live on the Facebook live stream video, as well as email all your comments, questions, and concerns at KUAW985@gmail.com. Remember, KUAW is Kansas City's global community radio station. We are a voice for the people and of the people. So please support and please give your comments and feedback and donate to this particular radio station. I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit. I do want to first of all give a shout out to T-Baby, who came on before me. Her show pretty much fueled what's going to be taking place on mine, as well as the events of last week and the week before. Today, the family of George Floyd was able to place his body at rest today. His funeral was today. And it was pretty lengthy. It was pretty long. I kind of was in and out watching it. Saw a lot of individuals that were pretty noteworthy there. I think I saw Jamie Foxx there, Al Sharpton. But I think the highlight at the end for me was Kurt Carr and our own, what's the name, Crystal from Kansas City, Missouri, threw down. I'm saying all this to say that what took place after George Floyd's death was ground shaking. It was changing. It was life changing. And for 10 days, there has been protests, not just in Minneapolis where this took place, or in his home state, or even in the United States. There were brothers and sisters all over the world that was in solidarity with I'm sorry, what is this playing? Okay, that was solidarity with George Floyd and his family in regards to this particular incident. Now, I'm saying all this to say that a lot of stuff sparked out of it. Like last week and the week before, I had mothers of black male sons come in and discuss their feedback of it. Well, we did live videos from the protest. We talked about several things, but there are two things that stick to my mind when it comes to this tragedy. The first thing is someone made a comment, and I'm in the presence of one of my elders right now. I have Mrs. Walker here in the studio with me, and her husband, Mr. Walker, is in the other room. And someone made a comment. I was having a discussion with someone, and they said that during their era, there weren't any leaders for the black community. However, in our era now, there are more leaders. And I looked at the person and I said, whoa, I said, are you sure about that? And the guy said, yeah. The era of the 60s, they were weak. So, of course, we had a huge debate in regards to his comment. Now, of course, I was on the opposite side of the spectrum. I feel right now there's no leadership. There's no clearly defined leadership. However, in the era of our parents and our grandparents and the civil rights movement, that's where you had some of your strongest leaders, if not some of the strongest leaders. As a matter of fact, when I have discussions or teach lessons or even try to do some sort of activism, I draw on the individuals that were here before me. I say that right now because I look at the state of African Americans back during the civil rights movement and African Americans now, and it's a total difference. It's like night and day. What I'm seeing now, as far as the leadership goes, I'm seeing a lot of people flock to leaders who appeal to an impulse versus intellect. See, a lot of us are still slaves to our impulses and not conveyors of intellect. And I say that to say that if someone appeals to a particular stereotypical appeal, that's who we run to. Now, no disrespect. I mean, I like Killer Mike. I think he has a lot of things to say, but I don't think he should be the premier leader in our community. This is how I feel. It's just my opinion. Um, then people say, "What about your Jesse Jacksons and your Al Sharptons?" Well, if you really look at Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, their leadership model has changed a long time ago. A long time ago. Um, there's this thing where ministers, preferably African American ministers, they have an opportunity to get some type of government assistance or government funding. And if that government funding is accepted, that turns that minister into an informant. And Al Sharpton, if you do your research, is one of those ministers who, in fact, is listed as an informant. Um, Also, on top of that, if you notice, there are a lot of things that happen in our community that you don't see Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson step in. Now, I am aware of individuals who approached from this area in Kansas City, Missouri, approached Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson in regards to assistance in a murder of their loved ones. And they were hit with a bill prior to getting their assistance. That's not what a leader does. You know, we need clearly defined leadership. Now, I'm going to be real. Mike Pence, Vice President of the United States, requested the presence of Candace Owens to come to the White House to lead a discussion on race relations. And if you're not familiar with Candace Owens is an African American female who says some very controversial things in regards to African Americans' plight. And I'm going to say live on the air worldwide because this station goes worldwide. Candace Owens does not speak for me because the things that come out of her mouth is so sideways. So sideways. And if you haven't Googled the video, there's a particular video that Candace Owens mentioned where she just pretty much just called George Floyd a martyr and said she's not going to support. I mean, she spoke very ill of Mr. Floyd. And I was always taught that you don't do stuff like you don't speak ill of the dead. And the stuff that came out of her mouth was totally disrespectful. Now, of course, you got your freedom of speech, but you know what? There's a fine line that respect determines how you should speak. And what she said, I'm not going to really repeat it because I don't want to devote my show to her. I want you to go and look at it yourself. But it was nasty. And the fact that you had people applauding her for what she said, and you had people that said, hey, you know, you should run for office. Candace Owens, we're with you. Now, there is one thing that she did mention that I could possibly somewhat agree with, where she said that in our community, we elevate the negative. Now, it depends on how you look at that. It really depends on how you look at that because it's questionable on what she meant by that. But then when she went in deeper, then it was obvious that she was trying to say that we were trying to elevate the negative things of Mr. Floyd, which totally wasn't true. I mean, our brother sat there and died up under a policeman's knee on worldwide television, and I don't care if the man stole my bike 20 minutes earlier. The way he went out, no one should have went out like that. And the fact that she was trying to give it an excuse was a problem. And if I had the opportunity to discuss that with her, I would probably have to, you know, let her know a few things, Inkwell style. But when it comes to the whole leadership of our community, if you look at war, you can't be all over the battlefield. You gotta concentrate your efforts in one spot. And one thing I want to say in our community, we need to be, we need to let this situation show that we can be unified. And we did show that. And not only were we unified as a people, we were also unified with individuals who had our best interests at heart. I mean, you saw a little bit of everything down there on the plaza. When I was down there protesting, I saw black, I saw white, I saw male, I saw female, I saw youth, I saw elder, I saw LGBTQ, I saw straight, I saw, and you know what? I'll be real with you. I saw some some people who were conservative, who voted Republican, and they said, "Look, it's not about my political affiliation. It's about what went down with this man, and it was wrong." So that unity was a beautiful thing. So one thing I want to say is, for all my brothers and sisters who are in the African American community, who want to say that, hey, I want to be a leader in this community. I made a post on Facebook a couple of days, I think it was yesterday. I said that a popularity does not define you to be a leader. All right, that's one thing we got to get in our minds. That popularity does not make you a leader. It just makes you popular. Everyone knows him. Everyone likes her. That does not make you a leader. Because when it comes down to it, a true leader is not liked by everybody. When a leader speaks, a leader dies. So when you decide you want to become a leader, something got to go. You die more and more each day when you become a leader. And you gotta be cool with that. You gotta know deep down inside that my credibility is gonna go, certain friendships are gonna go, certain relationships are gonna go. There's certain places I can't go, and if I'm as cold as I want to be, my life might go. Because if you think about it, every good leader in this country, in this world, was killed. Now let's talk about my mother's generation, my father's generation, Mr. Walker's generation, Mrs. Walker's generation. There was a time period where if it went down the right way, it would have been a whole lot different. You had Malcolm X had an epiphany. He said, you know what? The things I'm doing, I might want to switch it up a little bit. Because I went to Mecca and I saw some things that was different. I had a legit spiritual awakening. Dr. King, man, I'm leading my people into a burning house. And the way I'm doing things, all this peaceful stuff, I might want to switch it up a little bit. Then you had an attorney general, Bobby Kennedy. You know what? I'm supporting them. I'm supporting what they say and what they do. He had a president, John F. Kennedy. Say what you want to say, but he was, hey, I'm supporting this civil rights movement. Then you had a group of brothers and sisters called the Black Panther Party. We are progressive. And you had everything aligning to work in favor for people of color. And then what happened? When those leaders spoke, they died. And not only did they kill them, they killed them in front of their people. I was always told if you want to kill a king, you kill him in front of his people. You kill him in front of his kingdom. You kill him in front of his court. And when you saw Kennedy get popped, it was in front of the whole world. And when that happened, America was weak. Dr. King, outside, in front of his people, in front of his family. Brother X, my brother Shabazz at that time, killed by his own people in front of his family. Black Panther Party, they weakened that community. They flooded it with crack cocaine. Huey Newton was beat up by the police and then killed by a drug dealer. So right there, when you do stuff like that, when that happens, it weakens the kingdom. And our kingdom was weakened. Now, keep in mind, we had a bunch of strong kings from that period. But the fact that they were killed in front of their kingdoms, it made the kingdoms weak. And right now, we are in we have a strong possibility of this kingdom flipping around. Check this out. There's a Bible verse in Genesis. Let's see if I read this. Because I know I pulled this up in a partner of mine's birthday party. Shout out to Armand Carr. It was Armand's birthday yesterday. Armand not only is my best friend and my brother, he's also a strong supporter of the Sources of KUAW. So I want to thank you, man, for being born this day. Shout out to your mom and daddy for doing that thing and making you come here. I'm gonna pull up a scripture that I saw, and this scripture it talks about leadership in our community. And Genesis 15:13 and 14. God said to Abram, "Your descendants will live in a land that is not their own, where they will be slaves and be oppressed for 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve, and after that, they will come out with great wealth." So if you look at your history books from 1619 to 2019, that was 400 years. Some people believe that was the descendants of Abraham were people of color. Let's be real. People of color in this country have not been getting a good rap. We've been treated bad. And now some things are starting to change. Now, there are a few things I do want to share with you. The first thing I want to share is what came out of all of these protests. Now, the George Floyd protests have already made change In 10 days, so much change has occurred in this country due to the protest. First things first, the demand of disbanding and defunding police departments is coming into fruition in 10 days. Now, one of the principal battle cries from the protesters was to defund the police or replace current police forces with more community-oriented services like social workers, educators, and violence intervention programs. Now, let's be real, there are a lot of citywide police departments that aren't even ran by the city. Kansas City, Missouri, the police department in Kansas City, Missouri is not ran by Kansas City, Missouri. And in fact, it has not been ran by Kansas City, Missouri since the 1920s. That's why if you really listen to what the mayor says in regards to the police department, it's certain things he says. If you really listen to what he's saying, it kind of tells you that there's a difference there. Now, of course, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, faced a stinging chorus of boos when he declined embracing that. So he got booed, and if you look at the video, he had folk cussing him out. But that's what the people wanted. Now, let's go ahead and scroll a little bit farther. There are some cuts in police departments that have already occurred over two of the largest cities in the United States. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti pledged to cut an upward of $150 million from the proposed LAPD budget after a violent police crackdown over the weekend of protest. Now, LAPD is probably one of the most corrupt police departments in the world. And already they're pledging a $150 million budget cut in the city of Los Angeles. And all this came from the outbreak and from the backlash of the George Floyd protest. Had a little mind fart there. Now, as recently as Friday, now in New York, on the other side of the nation, Mayor Bill de Blasio suggested that he was not in favor of budget cuts. However, on Sunday, through an announcement without offer specifics, that he would support cutting NYPD's budget for $6 billion with a $6 billion budget. So keep in mind, you got LA, they wanted to cut police budgets from $150 million, and then you got New York, they wanted to cut the NYPD's budget $6 billion. So right there, you're seeing that the protests, people are starting to get what they want. Next, this is one that I kind of feel that kind of is close to home. Taking police out of schools. I told my kids, I said, look, there's a difference between being policed and being secured. I said, y'all being policed. And when you're being policed, that means you're being kind of like when you go to a prison. You know, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to stand up and show you something that I see a lot in schools when you have armed officers. You know, you see officers doing this a lot. They tapping their weapons a lot. They shaking that mace canister up a lot. Now, of course, someone's going to say, well, that's not true. I'm at a school where there is an officer and there's children of color. No. The fact of the matter that you got an actual police officer in a school building, period, is a problem. You got officers with sidearms and multiple rounds of ammunition in school buildings with children. And then on the flip side, you have being secured. Now, if you're being secured, that means you're being kept safe. I'm going to be real. I've worked in suburban and urban schools where there are children of color, and they are being policed. They are not being secured. I know I got people I work with that love to just sit down and write down what I'm saying and reporting it. Do what you got to do, because it is what it is. Our children are being policed. Now, look at all the videos, too, of these police officers running up on these kids and just going ham on them. Now, within days of Mr. Floyd's death, the Minneapolis Public Schools Board voted unanimously to end a $1 million contract for school securities with the Minneapolis Police Department. Now, the broader push to cut police department budgets generally, the move to end school contracts with police departments also has gone nationwide too. There are other school districts. Denver. Denver voted to have police officers from security positions in their schools, and also Portland as well. The discontinuing the regular presidents of school resource officers. So when you hear the term SRO, that means school resource officer. That means you have a police officer in your building. So you have Portland and you have schools in Denver that are following suit also. Personally, I feel uncomfortable with armed security in the school. I do. Because I've seen a lot of armed security officers that weren't too qualified to have a weapon. I've seen a lot of careless things done. Matter of fact, I got one for you. I saw, I'm not going to reveal what school I was in because I'm going too far. I saw a gentleman reach over and tug at the school resource officer's gun. You heard me. The gun was in the man's holster. This teacher playfully reached over and tugged at his weapon. Don't do that. I don't care if that officer is your husband, your best friend, your daddy. You don't touch that. And when I saw that, I knew right then and there that that officer was poorly trained, because what he should have did was put that teacher on the floor. You don't do that. That image in my mind, I would never let that go. And of course, there was an administrator sitting right there that watched it. I knew I had to get up out of that school because it wasn't safe. Next, disempowering police unions. Now, this is a big one. The police union in Minneapolis have been a real thorn in the side of these protests. And if you look up, I want you all to Google KUAW, Minnesota Police Department, Minnesota Police Union. That union supports the officers in Minneapolis to use lethal force. I mean, to the point to where if they're detaining someone, they're taught kill tactics versus restraint tactics. Hence what you saw in the video of Mr. Floyd. The protests have zeroed in on the political power, note, keyword is politics, of police unions as one reason why police are so rarely held accountable for misconduct. It's a good old boys club. Police officials are now being pressured to renounce campaign contributions from organizations representing police officers, particularly district attorneys, who might have the responsibility of prosecuting officers in excessive force cases. Keep in mind, you're probably asking, why haven't a lot of these officers been popped? The police unions are strong when it comes to their political backing for their members. So now, if you remove that union out of the way, it'll be easier to prosecute these men and women who do things such as walking up in your house and shooting you when you're in your bed and saying, oops, I got the wrong house, or putting you in a kill move and suffocating you in front of everyone. Now, in California, Bay Area district attorneys called for the state to bar and to ban political contributions from law enforcement organizations, and a number of elected officials promised to donate any past contributions from law enforcement. Most notably, Los Angeles District Attorney Jackie Lacey, who has received $2.2 million in contributions from law enforcement, said that she opposed any state bar prohibition on such contribution. So pretty much, you have the police unions giving money to district attorneys to kind of pad the pockets a little bit. When you get rid of those police unions, you'll start seeing more and more. Well, hopefully, the goal is to see more and more of these police officers prosecuted. Okay. Next one. Criminal charges for George Floyd's killers. First day, you didn't see nothing. Second day, you saw Chauvin popped. He was detained. A few days later, you saw it move from third degree to second degree. Now, hopefully, we get that first degree, because if you do your research, you will see that Chauvin actually knew George Floyd, so it possibly could have been premeditated. Then a few days later, you saw the other officers involved too. You saw all four being held on charges. Now, of course, I'm a bird in hand kind of person. I will celebrate when these individuals get the jail time that they deserve. That's when I will celebrate. Right now, I'm cool with them being being charges. However, I will celebrate when I see them in jail for a significant amount of time, such as life. Let's see. A reckoning in the press. All right. Now the press can be your biggest ally or your biggest uh, adversary. Prime example, look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump praised Fox News. Now he's starting to curse Fox News. So now all the media is is getting this goat. But depends on how you spin it. So while the protests did not explicitly address this goal, they have forced multiple prominent news organizations to undergo consequential public reckonings over coverage of police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement. And also the general treatment of staff members of color. You had a CNN reporter get arrested. However, his white counterpart didn't. Also, you saw protesters raise CNN. Now, people like to say that when it comes with this protesting, you have looters and you have rioters and you have insiders. Now, I'm not done with I'm not down with the insiders, the instigators. I'm not down with the looters. I'll be real. I'm down with protesters. I'm down with rioters. You know why? People who are nationalists or are extremely conservative like to say that they like to quote Dr. King. But quote Dr. King right. He distinctly said that rioting is the voice of the unheard. The rioting gets your attention. Those riots, if you notice, got your attention for you to listen to those who are protesting. Fine line between rioting and looting. Now, the media also failed to highlight what was really going on. I remember I was watching Mike Brown's protest and rioting going on. And I sat there and I watched some people peacefully protesting around a police car. It was peaceful. They were saying their stuff, but they kept their space. All of a sudden, I saw someone run in with a Molotov cocktail and throw it at a police car, blew it up, and ran away. And when this happened, all the peaceful protesters, they scattered. And when they scattered, you saw all these insiders coming in, wrecking damage and destroying that police vehicle. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, and I got someone who likes to, they don't know the difference between people who are inciting and who are protesting. All the individuals that got busted, or a good chunk of them that got busted, weren't even from Minneapolis. A good chunk of the people that got busted here weren't even people from Kansas City, Missouri. I looked on the news, and you know what? There was a police car that got set on fire. And someone tried to say, see them black folks down there. But it wasn't them black folks. You know what? I'm going to say something. Y'all going to be like, dang, Tyrone, for real? Shout out to Fox News in Kansas City. You know why? Because they zeroed in and zoomed in and said, these are the individuals. The police caught the individuals that set the police car on fire. And it was all white folks. Now, of course, you're going to say, why are you bringing up color? Well, I find it real strange that whenever something goes wrong at a protest, people love to say, it's them black folks, it's them thugs, it's those individuals, it's them, it's them. Now, Mrs. Walker, out of respect for you, you're my elder, and out of respect to my mom and dad and my listeners, I was going to say a curse word, but I wasn't because I love KUAW and I love y'all. But that's a bunch of bull mess because I'm a person that likes to put my money where my mouth is. I actually walked through the protest. I stayed there for hours, and I saw a group of individuals wearing all black tearing up our city. But I want to give a shout out to my brothers and sisters in Kansas City, Missouri. I sat there and I was talking with some friends of mine and some new friends. I made some new friends, and I looked over, and they said, "Hey, brother," he said, "I'm gonna just be real. Hey, man, look out. Keep a lookout for that group." I said, "What group?" Well, they posing as Antifa. They're walking around wearing all black. They got their faces covered up and they got spray paint on them. And I said, so he's up here describing these people. And I look over and I see this cat wearing his book bag, got spray paint bottles hanging off of him, got some fluid hanging off of him, and it wasn't water. I said, dang, you wasn't lying. I saw one, I saw two, I saw three. And then they started pushing the police barricade out of the way. And I said, oh man, they about to get bucked. So then what did I see? I saw people that were with us who pushed the barricades back over. And that's what we got to do, y'all. When we see them do stuff, we got to go back and correct what they doing right in front of them. Say, no, man, not in my city. Because I'm telling you right now, all that F12 you see spray painted down on the plaza, and all that Black Lives Matter, BLM painted, I guarantee you, a lot of that is not us. It's not. I actually witnessed it. So then, we sitting up here and we waiting, it's our group, and we saw the group from Westport coming down, and we all joined together. It was a beautiful thing. And you know what? And the reason why I said it was beautiful, because the police stepped back and let us march and do our thing. But as we were marching, I look over and I hear this bang sound, and I see the same cat wearing all black kick down a newspaper thing. You know where they put the Pitch Weekly and all those little newspapers where you can buy apartments and stuff? Well, this fool goes and kicks it over. I said, oh no. But what did I see? I saw a young lady walk over. She picked it right back up and set it right back up on place. You know why? Our protest wasn't about that. And then further down the line, this fool pulls out spray paint and starts spray painting. I got him on camera and I started saying stuff to him, and he runs away. I said, see, I'm glad y'all see that. So if there's a live video on my Facebook page. If you go to 1 minute and 8 seconds, you will see him tagging. And it wasn't one of us. It was not a person of color. It was not an individual from the Black Lives Matter movement. It was from that infiltrating group. It was an infiltrator, as a friend of mine, Marlon Carter, would say. It was an infiltrator. And they were running around doing it. And you start seeing more and more and more of them pop up. So then we go around the corner. And when we ran around the corner, it was like off that movie 300. You saw the police banging their billy clubs on their shields. And I said, okay. And someone informed me that there was a sign. It was a signal that they were doing with each other. So then I'm, sitting back and observing. And I see, did you see what they did with your pictures? Are they sending it to me? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, that's going to Mr. Walker. Okay, I was reading someone's comment. I look over and I see a young man pick up a brick. And I told my friends, I said, hey, watch him. He was a young African-American male. And now, although I'm saying that all of them weren't African-American males or African-American people, oh yeah, you had some ignorant African-American people out there too. But everyone out there was not ignorant. That's what I'm trying to get around to say. But this young man picked up a brick, and I said, hey, y'all might want to get away from him. We all kind of backed up. He took the brick and chucked it over into the crowd where the police was, and that's when everything started up. Now, yes, the oppressor will pay people that look like you to destroy people that look like you. Isn't that what happened to Mr. Leon M. Jordan? Outside of his club? Malcolm X, same thing. They will pay people to look like you to do that. Now, of course, you probably say, how you know he's paid? It don't matter. Either way it go, that young man was not representative of what was going on. And I'm saying all this to say is that the media will show you everything on a real big scope, but they won't single out each thing. If you see someone throwing a Molotov cocktail or someone burning a police car or a news van or throwing things, they're not telling you this. They're not telling you that it's from another group. But see, if you're over there on the ground like KUAW, Kansas City's global community radio station, they had someone there live on the scene who was able to differentiate who was for real and who was fake. See, not every news station is like that. See, this particular news station tells the narrative of the people. It told you what was real. But see, And and of course, some news stations will sometimes do it, or they will slip up and do it, like what Fox News did when they showed those people that blew up the car. But it is not a mainstream goal or a mainstream focus for a good chunk of news stations to give you a holistic, I'm sorry, a more specific look. Because where there's controversy, there's cash. And they're making money off of that. Now, case in point, now you're starting to see more news stations start to tell the story from the vantage point of the protester and not the individual that's bashing the protester. All right. There's some other things that came out of this too. And I'm going to talk about some other stuff also that all connects. Also, another piece of progression that occurred after Mr. Floyd's passing is, and this is one that kind of caught my attention, Confederate statues are toppled across the country. Now, first of all, it really vexes me that this country even allows the Confederate anything to be up. Not only is it racially inappropriate, I mean, they lost. They were treasonous. I mean, do you see, in this country, you can see the American flag wave, and then you see a Confederate flag wave right up under it, or you see a state that has a piece of the Confederate flag in it. So, of course, if I'm in a municipality or in a state and I see that it's okay to wave, of course, I'm going to put it on my bumper sticker or tattoo it on me or put it on my motorcycle. So the fact that this country even allows that flag to wave and also Robert E. Lee's statue to be up, that's just dumb. Now, let me give you a little history lesson. When the Union beat the Confederacy, they had a sit down. You had my man Ulysses S. Grant sitting there. One of my students said, "Why you like Ulysses S. Grant so much?" I said, "He was a whiskey drunk." And I said, and they said, "Why you say that?" I said, "Because let's be real. I mean, he kept it real. He kept it real, and he also spoke very very curt to all of the other leaders in the Union in regards to how things should go. And when he was president of the United States, he was pretty progressive with some change too. I'm not saying he was my favorite, but there was things about him that I liked. And also, Ulysses S. Grant, little history trivia, was the first U.S. president to get pulled over and get a DUI. He was drunk while he was driving his carriage. So anyway, I say that to say that he sat down across from Robert E. Lee, and Robert E. Lee conceded. He said, "I'm done. Y'all win." And he said, "What? Let's make a deal." So the deal was that Robert E. Lee had to give his land to the Union. And that land that he gave was Arlington National Cemetery. That was Robert E. Lee's plantation. So after he gave that plantation up, the Union took it and made it into a burial ground, tomb of the unknown soldier. And then he went on here and walked away. Personally, I felt that was a slap in the wrist because typically, if you was any other kind of trader in any other kind of country, the the penance was death. I'm gonna sit there and let that marinate for a little bit, because people that look like me and look like my mother and my father, when we did things remotely, on the other spectrum, we received death. Now, that's why I made that comment that the United States flag and the Confederate flag mean the same thing. They stood for the same thing. They both stood for slavery at one time. They both stood for oppression. However, one of them lost. So now you have people that are getting upset, and they're getting more upset, and they're starting to topple this stuff over. For example, on Saturday, protesters in Richmond, Virginia, toppled the statue of slave and plantation owner, the Confederate General Williams Carter Wickham. They used ropes, they pulled it down, and earlier in the week, protesters in Montgomery, Alabama, took down the statue of Confederate leader Robert E. Lee. So personally, that should have been happening a long time ago, but now people are starting to do it now. I'm talking about something else too, and I'm on the fence about this. Nancy Pelosi and some other individuals in the House took a knee and wore kente cloth. I don't know. I mean, some people are like, yes, yes, yes. My thing is this: if I'm down with you, one, I'm not gonna take something like, what happened with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Miss Breonna to make me start to give a darn about you. Because if I was rocking with you with day one, I held you in my heart since day one, and I'm not gonna allow a tragedy to. Well, let me say this: what I'm starting to see now is, yes, a lot of people are starting to speak up. The question is, where were you when all this was going on? When all this started? See, you're here after the fact. Let me ask you a question. If all of these elected officials were down like they say they are now, like, Mitt Romney, McCain's family, Nancy Pelosi and all them, all these companies that are saying, I want to pledge all this money to fight racism, Michael Jordan giving up $100 million, all that. Where was all this energy before George Floyd's death, before Ahmaud Arbery, before Breonna Taylor, before Trayvon Martin, before Tamir Rice, before Mike Brown, before we was getting beat upside the head with billy clubs, before they was planting dope on us, before they kicked up in our houses, before they stripped black women down naked on the streets of Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, that happened here. Yep. Before illegal searches. Now, let me ask you this question. If all that occurred prior, would this be going on right now? Because you know what? What happened to George Floyd was a tragedy. What happened to all those brothers and sisters were tragedy. I will not allow anyone to take their tragedy, take our tragedy, and make it a trend. Us dying in the street is not trendy. So for all those 15-minute revolutionaries and all those just now activists, that was dedicated to you. Because what I'm seeing, I'm not saying everyone's like that. No. But I'm just saying, why now? And that's the question I want to ask. Was you feeling this way prior? Was this same energy that you possess right now, was it still present and burning hot in your chest right now? Back then as it is right now? Because you know what? I'm gonna be real, and I might lose some listeners, some viewers, but it is what it is. Now, the McCain family. Where was your energy when your daddy, John McCain, shook hands with Michelle Obama and Barack Obama at the debate and then wiped his hand off after he shook his hand? Yep, sure did. Sat right there and watched it. He shook the hand and wiped his hand off. Where was y'all at when John McCain was, and this is an HBO special, Mrs. Walker. John McCain, they had a HBO special following John McCain's political campaign. He was sitting there with people, with white folks, calling Obama all kind of N-words left and right. And McCain was sitting there smiling. Of course, he didn't say nothing, but guess what? His silence gave a green light. Where was y'all when that happened? Where was y'all when, Mitt Romney was acting a fool? Trying to, say Obama didn't have a birth certificate. Where was y'all at with that? Where was y'all when Mitt Romney was trying to tell women how to deal with their bodies? But just because he take a knee down and cover and do this, he cool. One action, one act does not absolve you of some questionable things. I mean, yeah, you roll with us once. Now, Michael Jordan, as a ball player, yeah, you was one of my favorite. But as a person, when it comes to affairs for African Americans, I'm not too fond of you. But now all of a sudden, you want to drop $100 million. Like I said, it's cool. But like I said, where is that same energy? Now, this is what I want to say to all of us. all of the individuals that are giving money, that are donating, that are donating time, that are donating, that are pledging support. We got to hold them accountable. Y'all got to keep it going, because the next time something like this happens, and it will be the next time, y'all need to be there, and not on the back end, but on the front line. Because see, everyone was talking about Colin Kaepernick. Oh, he's this, he's this, he's this, he's that. But now, his own former employer said, you know what, we was wrong, Kaepernick was right. Okay, your actions speak louder than your words, man. What you gonna do about that? How you gonna atone? Because see, here's the thing. People say, well, you gotta forgive. I got you. But you know what, though? True forgiveness is requiring the individual that did wrong to atone for it. And then they're gonna say, well, God ain't like that. Oh, hold on. When you sin, yes, you have to atone for your sin. There is atonement. And my thing is, you're not going to sit up here and do stuff to me and my community and my tribe and walk away. Oh, no. It don't work like that. Like these individuals right now, they got to play. I mean, we got to keep that support going. There's no come in, let me do this and walk away. Because you know what? It's election year, people. It's election year. And people are doing stuff to take your mind off of, like with that coronavirus. It was bigger than the virus. If you look at what's going on, there's always a dragon behind the flame. Always. Always. And you got to kill that dragon to kill that flame. I'm like, we got to get organized and go down in these polls and vote. We got to vote them out. And then people come in and say, hey, I want your vote. I want your vote. Well, what can you do for me and for my people? Because it's like T-Baby said earlier, we got to start grooming our own. We got to start grooming our own police officers, our own sheriffs, our own judges, our own attorneys. And you know what? Someone said, told me talking about some Kamala Harris for president. No. You know why? Because when she was district attorney, she turned a blind eye to all those black and brown bodies falling at the hands of police violence. But now all of a sudden, she's all for it. But where were you when this was happening? We need to groom our own judges, our own senators, our own state reps, our own congressmen, our own Supreme Court judges, our own presidents, our own vice presidents, our own attorney generals. Elect people that got the true best interest of the people at heart. Because right now, Donald Trump is all about self. Because if you really think about it, all you Trump supporters out there, when this whole pandemic went down, who got rich? Him and his billionaire and millionaire friends. Who stayed broke? Who was Ms. Walker? Who was begging for their jobs with guns? Exactly. You begging for your job with guns at the state capitals, while that man who you worship, that man who you give your life for, the man who you think walk on water, was getting rich off of you staying at home. Now I got a question. I got a question. You gonna vote for him on November? What has he done for you? Now, let's be real. Donald Trump in office represents the true essence of the American people. That's American greed. And to be able to say whatever the blank you want because you got some money. But guess what? A good chunk of his vocal supporters are broke. And they're mad because people that look like me and people that look like and women got more than what they got. And they hope the same thing that some black folks was hoping with Obama. I'm going to keep it real. That Obama will come in and save the black folks. Well, Obama wasn't like that. You got folk who are sitting up here thinking, wow, Donald Trump's in office. He's going to say what I actually feel. But guess what? Donald Trump can barely say what he feel. You definitely can't. Because if you've been really looking at these media feeds of all these white nationalists talking crazy, hashtag that man with that bow and arrow. Look what happened to him. That's one thing I will say. You got folk who ain't putting up with it no more. And yeah, I said ain't. You got folk that ain't putting up with what's coming out y'all's mouth. So I'm going to tell you right now, either A, You get down and realize that man's selling you a pipe dream, or B, you go ahead and roll with it, and guess what? I guarantee you, if he get another 4 years in office, you're still gonna get nothing. Because right now, the United States of America is a laughing stock of the whole world. And it's because of what that man's allowing to do. You know what? If you was really a supporter, I think one president said it best. You don't support the president. No, you support the country. Y'all got it all mixed up. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop right now because my sister Lene is coming on next. I want to give her some time to get started. But I wanted to talk more about effective leadership in our community. And I know I started off like that, but next week I want to focus more on the traits of an African American leader. Because right now we don't have any, or we don't have many, that we can sit up here and say, look, this is somebody I will follow. So keep in mind that when you take on the helm of leadership, you're taking on a heavy responsibility. And that heavy responsibility is going to be a loss. As a leader, you will lose a lot in order for others to be saved. So think about that. Is this something that I'm willing to do? This is Tyrone Gathers Jr. And in the source of the ink well, education overflows like ink. And like ink, let it stay permanent. I see you all next week. Thank you all, and God bless.